So today let's talk about the iPhone SE3, because whilst it is an overpriced iPhone if you buy it from Apple directly, you can thankfully find it for much less by third parties. I got mine for $200 and I've seen it for as low as $149, and so let's delve into why this actually might be one of the best bang for your buck devices you can buy in 2024. So for those not aware, I did actually review the SE3 back when it released, and I wasn't so positive about it in my review. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad iPhone, but it definitely was overpriced at $429, especially when back then you could easily find the iPhone 12, the 12 mini, or the 11 for much less. However, around 2 years later, you can now easily find this for sub $200/pounds in excellent refurbished condition, and for those skeptical about refurbished devices, I got this from a UK retailer called giffgaff in like new condition, and this phone is flawless, guys. It's got 100% battery health. I got the 128GB option for £200, and so yes, I'm very chuffed with this, guys, and it's been great for me for the last year or so. I did actually make a dedicated video regarding my experience with giffgaff, so for those interested, you can check that out in the icon above. Anyways, because it's now so cheap, my perspective on this phone has completely changed. For example, beginning with the design, this was by far the biggest weakness with the SE3 at retail price, since it basically looks identical to the SE2, which was based on the iPhone 8, which was based on the iPhone 7, which was based on the iPhone 6 and 6S. And so here we have a design that's nearly a decade old. I can't believe Apple got away with that. Now that's something hard to forgive at $429, but of course at half the price, I can look past it. Yes, there are Android phones even at $200 that look way more modern, but they generally have thick uneven bezels, and so the SE3 in comparison isn't too bad. And there is a plus here with the older design, which is of course Touch ID. Now I do love Face ID, don't get me wrong, I've been happily using it for years, but using Touch ID again does make me miss it a little, I can't lie. There are some angles where Face ID sometimes does not work at, but that's not really an issue for Touch ID. It's super fast and reliable, and I love the haptics. They always feel awesome. You know what else would feel awesome, guys? You clicking that subscribe button, of course. I would greatly appreciate it and would bring you the latest about Apple right to your subscription box, so please consider it and join the Surround Bike gang now. Anyways, the display is also something people complained about at launch, and while it does still pale in comparison to what Android phones offer even at this price, I can once again live with it for $200. Apple's LCDs are usually great, and even with a low resolution on paper, this still looks pretty crispy. I also don't mind the lack of 120Hz, 60Hz is fine. Yes, I know that's going to trigger the techies, but yeah, it's really fine for regular usage. I will say the brightness was a tad low outdoors, but most budget Android phones also don't have very bright panels. And personally, the screen size is a non-issue for me because I'm not watching videos very often on my phone. I'm scrolling on social media, and so for that, this display is mostly fine, and the compact size is actually quite refreshing compared to the behemoth that is my 14 Pro Max. But yeah, those are basically the only cons with the SE3. If you can look past those aspects, everything else you get here for $200 or less is pretty insane. First of all, the build is a lot better than Android devices at this kind of price. It's aluminium and glass, which was great in the hand, but also you get features like IP67 and wireless charging, which are rarities at this kind of price. But by far the best part about this iPhone, and the aspect that blows me away, is the performance this phone has. So obviously in here is the A15 chipset, which is basically the same chip Apple offers in the newer iPhone 14. Now yes, I know those technically have one more GPU core, but it's only slightly better and you're basically getting the same performance. And that's crazy to think about considering this is sub $200. And so yes, as one expects, the performance is very good, and coupled with the optimization of iOS, this phone outperforms every other phone at this price category. You also get 4GB of RAM here, which again is a nice addition because most cheap iPhones at sub $200 only get 3GB of RAM, so you're rarely going to be running into RAM issues on the SE3. Now you could argue, why does this actually matter? Mid-tier Android chipset is still good enough for most people's needs, right? Well yeah, that is true, but of course, you definitely do pick up on this phone's chugging a little with more complex games, whereas that's not an issue with the SE3. This basically plays any game without breaking a sweat. But more importantly for me, this having an overkill chipset will mean that it gets way longer support than any other Android phone at this price. You're lucky to get 1 or 2 years of updates on Android phones, But here on the SE3 for sub $200, you could probably get another 4 or 5 years of iOS updates. That's insane, and so if you can once again put up with the limitations with the design and display, this offers incredible value because sub $200 for a phone that can be used for 5 years is just unheard of. It blows my mind. Talking about future-proofing, another benefit with the SE3 is that it offers 5G. In fact, I'm pretty sure the sole reason Apple released this is because they wanted a complete 5G range, since ultimately this wasn't a big upgrade over the SE2, but of course now at sub $200, this is something very nice to have because 5G has become prevalent. You also get eSIM support, which again is a rarity at this price. And the good news continues because now we come to the camera on this phone, which once again is one of the best at this price. Now, to be fair, you can find Pixel A phones for a similar price that has fantastic cameras for sub $200, but I would argue the SE3 offers the overall better camera experience, mainly because of the video quality. I actually bought this phone as a B-roll camera for my reviews, and it's been exceptional for that purpose. Yes, it has a small sensor on paper and it does not have many zoom options because there's only one lens on the back of the device, but basic video footage looks amazing on this device and you won't be having to fiddle with settings. It just effortlessly produces very good video. And yes, I know it does lack some newer video features like ProRes and cinematic video, but for this kind of price, I'm not too bothered, especially when the regular footage looks this good. Now, of course, not everybody is recording YouTube videos, so for photos, this sensor is also pretty solid. This does have Smart HDR4, which of course the iPhone 13 and 14 has, and so even with the sensor being the same one from the 2018 iPhone XR, because of Apple's computational magic, it's pretty good in most lighting conditions. I say most though, because annoyingly there is no night mode on this. That's really the big feature Apple refuses to give the SE3, but apart from that, you do get all the portrait lighting features, as well as photographic styles. Also, the front-facing camera is an older 7-megapixel sensor, but again, because of Apple's computational magic, it performs very well, and so overall I'm very happy with the cameras. Speakers and mic-wise, I've had zero issues, and here's a sample for you guys. Everything so far sounds fantastic about the SE3, but some of you guys might be wondering, how's the battery life on this? Well, I'll be honest guys, when I first reviewed this, I was disappointed by the endurance. It was very poor and I made a video regarding this back then, but maybe that was iOS 15 to blame because now with iOS 17, this phone surprisingly isn't too bad. Of course, I'm coming from an iPhone 14 Pro Max, which has a much larger battery inside, so I made sure to have realistic expectations. But overall, I'm getting 5 to 6 hours of screen on time, and that's plenty for most consumers. And actually, this is one of the few advantages the SE3 has over the older SE2. The bigger battery and the A15 chipset does make a difference. And so yeah, battery life is plenty good for regular usage. Now yes, I know many are going to mention I have a device that has 100% battery health, and so of course the battery life is very good. But if you're shopping used or refurbished, that might not be the case. Most SE3s on the market might have 90% battery health or less. But to be fair, batteries age in all products, and if you want to replace it, you can quite easily do that through Apple, and of course, they only charge $69. Nice! But yes, even with a worse battery health, I don't think the battery life's going to be that bad. And again, for sub $200, I can live with weak endurance because of an older battery inside, and just charge it throughout the day. So that's basically everything regarding the SE3 in 2024, and if you can get this for around $200/pounds or less, you really can't go wrong with this. Yes, there are some negatives that some might not be able to look past, but if you can, you'll be very happy with this in my opinion. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments, so make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.